build-up and bravado. Ukrainian tanks flexing for the cameras as 100,000 Russian troops amass on its border. But this morning, as British-supplied anti-tank weapons were landing in Ukraine, the German foreign minister touched down in Moscow and promptly told the Russians their actions could not be seen as anything other than a threat. The response? Niet.
We don't threaten anybody with anything, and our reaction will obviously be predicated on what concrete steps our Western partners take.
But the weapons in this feared conflict aren't just missiles and might, they're economic. This pipe being laid is part of Nord Stream 2, a new artery pumping Russian gas to the heart of Europe. A pump worth billions, which Germany refuses to turn on.
Right now, the certification process for the pipeline is suspended. We've stressed repeatedly that, if energy was used as a weapon, this would have a corresponding effect on the pipeline.
These manoeuvres from a month ago say Russia are just exercises. But will yet more sanctions stop them turning real? Russia has already been punished with penalties since invading Crimea in 2014 and spent the last 8 years building not just a military, but a financial fortress. War is expensive, but soaring oil prices make it more affordable for a nation swimming in black gold. Russia's break-even point is $43 a barrel. It's currently trading at around $87, a 5-year high. Russia's been steadily strengthening its war chest, increasing cash and gold reserves by more than 70% since 2015, and now standing in excess of $620 billion. And all the while reducing reliance on foreign investment. Corporate loans from abroad have almost halved since 2015. How resilient are Russian finances to possible economic sanctions?
I think altogether as a package, they would be quite debilitating. But as you probably know, quite a lot of Russian businesses and individuals have actually been under sanctions since 2014. So things like oil and gas corporations and defense, who are kind of considered real cornerstones of the Russian economy, have pretty much got used to it.
The US Secretary of State Antony Blinken will meet Russia's foreign minister later this week in Geneva after a visit to Kyiv. For now, though, the slow march towards a war everyone says they do not want continues.
Oh yes, so I have. Well, joining me now from Washington is John Herbst, who's a former US ambassador to Ukraine. Mr. Herbst, if these talks do take place between NATO and Russia, will they, do you think, succeed in averting conflict or not?
Well, it is one man who will make a decision. Versus master. With what?
Do you know what? We're struggling to hear you, I'm afraid. I thought it was perhaps a car passing behind me, but I'm struggling to hear you. So I think we might try and... Let's just try one more time if you could answer that question. Thanks, Mr. Herbst.
Okay. It's all up to Mr. Putin. He has massed the forces on Ukraine's border. He can order them to be removed from Ukraine's border. I don't think the talks are key to it. They may provide a fig leaf for Putin to back down if he chooses to. It's unclear, though, whether he will back down.
You say it's all up to Mr. Putin, but isn't the reality that all sides have to compromise in some respect, and that might extend even to some of the more hawkish voices in the White House?
Well, I don't think the White House is particularly hawkish. I think their policy could be stronger. But in fact, it's Putin who's conducting a war in Ukraine right now. It's Putin who's threatening to send 100,000 more troops into Ukraine if his demands are not met. It sounds to me like someone is the aggressor. We are happy to talk to Mr. Putin, but not to concede major points in order to avoid an additional aggressive policy from him.
But if you adopt that stance, and if the White House adopts that stance, isn't there a risk of things escalating further and we stumble into a war that none of us want?
Well, I think we've tried appeasement with Mr. Putin in Georgia in 2008, in Crimea in 2014. What we've learned is that we do nothing when Putin commits aggression, he commits additional aggression. Mr. Chamberlain was wrong to compromise with Hitler in 1938. This is not 1938, but the same logic applies.
But those words you're choosing are, evoking some very uncomfortable historical comparisons here. Is that intentional?
Look, as I said, this is not 1938, but Putin is a serial aggressor. to meet his demands when he's threatening additional aggression is only a way to guarantee more aggression, not a way to avoid a war.
So when the US Secretary of State travels to Ukraine tomorrow, what do you think his message should be there?
His message should be that the United States will do as it has promised. If Putin sends those forces into Ukraine, we will issue punishing sanctions on Russia in connection with the EU. We will also send additional weapons to Ukraine. We will also increase NATO's force posture in the east. All of these things will weaken Russia's geopolitical position, and they serve as a deterrent to additional Kremlin aggression. Again, the main point here is Putin is the aggressor, not Ukraine, not NATO, not the United States. It's Putin.
And when you look at the troops on the border, do you believe 100% that Russia is serious? They deny that they plan to invade. So is it possible that this could be saber-rattling?
I think it's most likely that it's saber-rattling because the West is much stronger than Russia, and Putin does really not want those additional sanctions. He's trying to scare us into making concessions which cut against our interests, and I think he's failing at this point.
John Herbst, thanks very much for joining us, and apologies about the quality of the line at first, but I'm very glad that we persisted.